Hey everyone, how are you? Today is my birthday and I was here last year on my birthday if you remember. So I'm 32 this year. It's such an exciting year. Your 30s are your 20s. Like, it really is true. You can accomplish anything in your 30s. And today I'm going to talk about inspiration for the Void novels because many of you here have been supporting the channel and I want to create something. Ooh. I want to create something for you guys to like look through, read, and not only be fiction entertaining, but also something that you can have that has a little bit of like context to science and math and cryptography in this world. So it can be sort of like a guidebook too, and hopefully like that's creating something that's really worthwhile sharing with you guys. So I put out a poll, as you know, on this community part of the channel, and I said, what shall I stream next? And you guys said that inspiration was something that you wanted to see, so I'm going to talk about the inspiration in creating novels and why, like, I found that making sure you know what inspires you, like, archive all that. Make sure you have it filed down and saved, because anytime you're creating something, you can always reference other work and you can always make homage or Easter eggs to other work and it kind of helps create this web with your work and work that exists elsewhere and has been part of our culture and society. So that's kind of why it's so cool to recreate off of things you're inspired by. And what is that? Well, books, movies, songs, and games. So I'm going to look through some books and all that. So since it's my birthday stream, I haven't really planned for this. I really just wanted to go off what my instinct was, what my memory gives me, and try to take it back to when this all began. So my book novel series, that's more of a newer agenda for me. I started with the idea that I really wanted to write a screenplay. So in 2012 to 2014, I was in college for filmmaking, screenwriting, and that's what I really wanted to do in this world. So not only did I learn how to write, I also was a camera operator and I was a video editor. So that all got me the skill sets to learn how to produce films. And I've done short films before, but before embarking on a full-length film journey, it's been like 10 years in the making, since 2014 to 2024, a decade, 10 years of me trying to learn the skill set to be able to channel what I really want to say through these novels, and I'm going to adopt the novels to film, right? So when I was in film school, I keep repeating this, but when I was studying film, I sort of realized that a lot of the movies that everyone loves come from books first. So how are you going to write the most amazing movie just from a screenplay? Because a screenplay is a redacted version of whatever your dreams are with a scene, right? You're only writing specific things and cutting out everything else so that it doesn't clutter the page and actors can read through it. That's what screenplays are for actors to be able to scroll through on a movie set. But if you really want that rich, like, detailed knowledge sharing kind of prose that comes with novel, then you go for that novel and then you adapt it into films. And then you got amazing films because it came from this bulk of words that you like primarily wrote down for the design. And so that's how amazing like being a writer is. It's like everything is like at your pen. You can create anything. It's so cool, and it's the basis of everything else in movie making. So yeah, I have shared like before some streams on this, so you guys might be familiar with like the titles that I'm going for, but I just want to show you guys something that I've been working on, and it's really exciting for me to share this. Let me make sure I can read you guys' comments if you ever drop in. I know that we all have different schedules, like I'm not sure what schedule This is in the States compared to where I am now. But okay, so what this is I wanted characters for my book, and I wanted hundreds of characters. I don't know how many I'm at right now. This is going to expand. I'll let you know how it's going to expand in a moment. But this is my starting point for the book one, okay? And so we got like how many down? About 30 lines down and about 30 lines across. So 30 by 30, how much is that? 30? 600? Is that 600? Let me go my calculator really quick. 30 times 30. 900. Oh my gosh. Okay, I have like 900 characters in my book. That's mad. Like, why stop there? I should at least have 1,000. So you can imagine like why it takes a decade to write a book, because if you have close to 1,000 characters in your book series, and I'm sure like so many movies do, you have to think about the extras so much. Like, even if they're not the main characters, like they still are important to why they exist in your world. So you kind of have to make characters into a mini world build. And this is gonna be the world for me. There's 1,000 characters. They always reincarnate through different eras. So I'll get to some books and stuff about this all. But I just want to kind of browse. So what I've done here is, let me just take off dark mode and kind of go in a little bit closer. So what I realized is that I really love the meaning of life. And to me, Net Void is the search for the meaning of life. But it gets deeper. I've interwebbed things on what Net Void means too. So that's just part of it. But what I'm saying here is, look, I have the history of mankind, the history of Earth, let's just say, written in here. So the start of atheism, which would be since the dawn of time, right? Spoken word. Then the Atlantean religion, which is a mythical religion. However, it's been written about by Plato. So if a Greek philosopher is writing about the existence of Atlantis, which was allegedly an island in the Atlantic Ocean, right? Like a large, almost a continent that allegedly sunk down because either a comet hit it, or there was a Mars invasion, or there's so many theories as to why Atlantis failed. But also the other theory is that it was an advanced civilization, and maybe like humans had supernatural powers, and who knows? It's like such an interesting topic. I was like, it's a myth, but a lot of religions are a myth, so I'll include it, and we're gonna have our main characters settle into Atlantis, the first novel. So that's basically the plot of the first book, is the creation of Earth and the settlement of Atlantis and the destruction of Atlantis. So after that, the second book is going to start about like the Sumerian age, which is where we get the first accounts of written language. So that would have been that cuneiform language from Sumer, and we have the Sumerian tablets to prove that. And it's such an interesting religion as well, because they believe in the Anunnaki, and they believe that Earth was founded through this crazy trip of aliens finding Earth and gold mining it, and while they're gold mining it, creating a race of humans, right? So that's fascinating. That sounds like almost every science fiction novel I could ever think of, and I was like, we're including that too. And then we get to Egyptian. So most people, when we go to primary school, we're taught about the Egyptian hieroglyphics and how to draw them, and we're taught a little bit about how our ancestry, a lot of it relates back from Egypt, like the foundation of mathematics and philosophy, that all goes back to Egyptian times, and even the creation of time, right? So it's such a cool, and also like the first real well, Sumerian has the first real pantheon with the Anunnaki, and then we translate that to Egypt, so you get a lot of influence there. And then Canaan, which is Phoenician, so the founding of the phonetic language, which then created so many other languages from Phoenician. And then from Phoenician is the founding of Gematria, or cryptography, because that's the first account that we get. Because before they were using cuneiform and hieroglyphics, now with phonetic language they could actually organize it into ordinal and create the ordinal cipher, 1, 2, 3, 4, so we get that, which is incredible. And then we also get, like, from that, oh my gosh, like, that's the spawn of, like, so much of the dark energy in the world too, is like from that era of, like, tribal, there was a lot of war there. It's like, wow, that and that's what's written about in the Bible, right? So Moses, so then we get to the Old Testament, and basically how the tribe of Moses went into Canaan. That's how you get the first opening chapters of the Bible, is about Moses going into Canaan. So that's going to be included in the book, absolutely. Like, the character of Moses is going to be in the books. Obviously, I'm going to do my very best to keep, like, everything as organized as I can. This is a lot of information, a lot of characters, but we're trying here. Okay, so next we have the Mayan civilization. So I actually went down to Mexico City, and I saw in the museum there, they had these remnants of the Mayan calendar, or the Mayan and Aztec calendars, and kind of like what they believed in and their pantheon. So I've always found their kind of culture really fascinating too. I love ruins. I think they're amazing. I would love to set some of my films in the background of these awesome ruins. Dravidianism is really important because it's pre-Hinduism, and it kind of has that the founding tribal, like, pantheon from India, which is really fascinating. And a lot of the gods that they have there influence our astrology. Like, one of my friends who's a really good tarot and esoteric reader, she told me about the connection between the Dravidian gods with astrology. And not only that, just like the Western gods, a lot of them have been sampled from Hindu gods. And then we get the Babylonian, which a lot of us know about Babylon too. Like, that's also not only written in the Bible, but it's just such a common word to hear Babylon, And when you think of Babylon, there's a few movies titled that, and the Tower of Babylon, and all that good, like, analogy. Atonism, okay, so there we go, is now the creation of monotheism. So from the polytheistic religion of the ancient Egyptian gods, which a lot of us are familiar with, like Ra, Set, Isis, Osiris, them, to monotheistic worship of Aten, which by the pharaoh Akhenaten, he was kind of the first to transition into monotheistic religion with the sun at the center of the worship. So that's where we get, like, the pre-foundation of Christianity, really. And a lot of people theorize that Akhenaten was helping write the Old Testament Bible. It's like mad how cool all this history is. So, like I said, when I'm writing about this, it's not like fiction that, oh my gosh, I'm making up a whole, like, no, everything that I'm making into fiction is based off real, like, historical references. So that way when you're reading this work, you're not, like, into this la 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 fantasy land where everyone's characters doesn't make any sense. No, you're in this world where the characters are very relatable. You've seen them, you've heard their stories, now they're gonna all interact together, kind of thing. And hopefully you learn, or you get inspired, or you join in the creativity, and you collaborate, and we create something like this together, and we expand on the universes and things like that, because it's such a good, like, way to make friends. Storytelling. Judaism, of course. So I also have, like, from my grandfather on my father's side, I have Jewish descendancy, but I'm not entirely sure how much of that is accurate if it doesn't come from the mother's lineage. So because it's from my father and my grandfather, I don't exactly know, but I know that a lot of my ancestors left Czechoslovakia from around there, Germany, to immigrate to the United States. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there, but that's why I feel a real affinity to Gematria and why I feel like I have any reference to talk about it, because you would think like, oh, you study Gematria, like, yeah, I'm really passionate about it. I feel it that way because I know in my ancestry somewhere there is a connection to those family members, you know what I mean? And the thing is with Judaism, it's like Jewish mysticism is the most like beautiful part to me. So I learned a lot about Lilith through Jewish mysticism. And Lilith is such an interesting character. She's actually the main character in these novels. Why? Because you hear about the Garden of Eden so much. Adam and Eve, Adam and Eve, Adam and Eve. Well, in Jewish mysticism, there's actually Lilith too. She was equal to Adam, which that's fascinating to me. Obviously, to me, these stories are an allegory, they're metaphors, but let's just say in a world where it was true, then I'm writing about the character Lilith and how she was an ancient god that got incarnated as a mortal into this world. So that's kind of why the name is Mortal Lust, is because it's about these gods becoming in mortal human form. And the lust element is like such a crucial, it's like what runs the world to me, because and the ether and everything else, because I think that's what souls really yearn, is souls lust to complete their soul and growth, basically. So like a soul like Lilith from her home planet, before Earth is created, she lusts to know herself more. She lusts to know who she really is, and she lusts to know how she and all her friends and everyone that exists in the ether are there, why they're there, and what the pursuit of happiness is, and what the generosity is, right? So and every other character, like the 900,000 other characters that I'm putting in, also have some sort of lust. They have a lust to complete something. So that's kind of why I chose this. And I always think of us, it's like so risque. I'm like, oh my goodness, is this a title that I want to be showing? Is this something that is family friendly? But at the end of the day, guess where I got the inspiration from? Guess. I will give you 10 seconds, but I will type it in, because what I was inspired by, I'm going to type it in off screen first, is a lipstick shade. So let me just see if I can remember which one it is. Yeah, this one. Okay, so I found, and let me tell you what I did. Since I don't think I have many comments rolling in just yet. Oh, hi, Mike. Thanks so much for saying hi. I appreciate it. Hello. How are you doing? Okay, so I'm laughing because this is so silly, but this is how you gain inspiration. Okay, so I want to talk about Mortal Lust and why I named it this. Okay, the inspiration is because way back when I was in college, in film school, I wanted to create something that was my own, and I didn't need to submit it for a grade, because I was doing so many assignments and I was creating all this work that was just created because they asked me it was an assignment and I needed a grade, right? So I said, I need inspiration. I need to talk about something. Can you help me with I was like Ethernet, like the ether, like the Akasha, the Maya, the web. I wanted to ask the world, the universe, like, help me, what will give me inspiration? So I went to a makeup store in Chicago, downtown Chicago, makeup store. I looked through the lipstick shades because I love lipstick, and I pulled one out. And the first one that I pulled out that day, I was like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo kind of thing. Picked one up. It said 𝓲𝓪𝓬𝓪. So I actually named the first version, my first screenplay that I did out of my own like gumption, 𝓲𝓪𝓬𝓪, based off of this lipstick shade. So why am I second guessing the name of my books if you can go out to your local makeup store, pull out a lipstick shade, and you're gonna get 𝓲𝓪𝓬𝓪? Like, okay, so I don't think the name of my book should be taboo, right? The only reason it should be taboo is if you personally don't like it, and that's totally fine. And maybe you're underage and it feels strange to read a book, Mortal Lust. But I tell you, this is family friendly. Like, honestly, I write in the way that I'm inspired by, which is by J.K. Rowling, by Harry Potter. So a lot of this is not only like going to explore the most dark, like the most profound questions of the universe, it's also going to be family friendly and something that actual kids could read if they wanted to, kind of thing. Because I think I really appreciate the fact that Harry Potter kept it that way, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's move on with this. I got a little bit sidetracked. Celtic is not my forte. It's not a religion that I'm very aware of, but I'm learning about and I'm very interested. And I live so close to that area where it was founded that I might as well try to learn a lot more. See, a lot of magic is what I think of when I think Celtic mysticism, like fairies, I don't know, like magic spells, witches, brews, like some potions, yeah, like I find that really cool. Insignias, yeah. Oh, okay, so then we have, sorry, I probably skipped over something, but there we go. Buddhism is next. I grew up like with a family member, my father, who really studied Buddhism, and he was very interested in understanding like the karmic cycles, the reincarnation, and kind of like energy. And so from my father, I learned a lot about energy and reincarnation, and so that's going to be a very founding part of this novel, is that a lot of it is based on Buddhist like ideas and I think that's like something that we can all learn from, we can all still learn about, as there's so much to learn. But yeah, Confucianism, again, nothing I'm totally connected with, but I did travel and live in China for 3 years. So when I was in China, I still felt a lot of connection to that area, and I find it really beautiful too. Norse mythology is something that's really inspiring me right now. I was so not aware of it before, but then I started to read about Loki and Thor, and I really like it now, so they're going to be involved a lot. And Zoroastrian, again, not something I'm totally familiar with, but it's from modern day Iran, that area, and ancient Persia. So Jainism, so this is like, I've heard of this, but I'm not too familiar either. So from what I take of it, they're monotheistic religion, so but they believe in this Lord Mahavira, so he's gonna be in it. Shinto is a religion that one of the people who have been on my show, Amaterasu, she's so familiar with Shinto religion, and actually one of her name Amaterasu, so her username is Amaterasu, so she's gonna inspire that segment of the book, and obviously her characters, that's her character. Taoism, again, I think this is where a lot of the yin and yang symbolism comes from. Greek mythology, I mean, absolutely, like, this is a religion you grow up watching, reading, like, finding stories about. Everyone knows about Greek stories, and they're kind of like the most fun out of the bunch to really write about. And then the Roman, of course, very similar. And as you can see, there's like a god of void almost in every religion. Like, they're all different names, but I thought that was really cool. And actually, a god of void that we're gonna talk about is, so we got Christianity, and we got, right, like, there's another founder. It's not just Jesus Christ, so bear with me. A lot of this information is not going to be completely accurate right now. It's a stencil. But okay, after Christianity, we get Gnosticism, and this is so 𝓤 is going to be one of my characters. I'm going to have a few characters, okay? But 𝓤 is one of them. Why? Because if you type in, so 𝓤 is the primordial void god of Gnosticism, right? So if you type that into the calculator, 𝓤, you get 89 like net void. So that's a really cool way to start my cryptography journey, is like, okay, my channel already equals something. Let me find a god in history that actually equals my pen name. So that way, when I'm writing these books, I'm actually channeling the angle, the perspective, who is writing these books. Not really me anymore, because now I'm giving the pen to 𝓤, which is the god of void, the void god from Gnostic religion. Why Gnosticism? It's my favorite religion. It's more like a spirituality. I think anyone who's Gnostic knows that it's so pagan, and like, it's so celebrated from ancient times that it's like, is it really a religion? It's more like you're open-minded and you're spiritual. So the void god, 𝓤, writes these books. It's through her lens, and they're the ones telling you the story and who you're gonna learn from, if that makes sense. Gosh, I like, all the Gnostic gods are going to be kind of the main gods. So if you're kind of my best friend or my close friend, I'm gonna take one of your personality traits and add it to one of these gods so that you can be included in these books. So Catholicism, I unfortunately have some experience with Catholicism from growing up, and it wasn't all the best. So I think everyone's entitled to really talk about their journey with any which religion, and all I can say is, like, I really value King James. King James I of England is my favorite king because he was the founder of Shakespeare. He funded it, basically. So a lot of people think he was the founder, and him and Sir Francis Bacon, they were best friends. Anyway, so King James also equals net void, right? So King James. So King James is another person you're really reading or writing from. So he's going to have a lot of chapters in this. And so King James dislikes the Catholics. Why? Because in his time, King James's time, the Catholics created basically it's like a papal bull, something like that. A law, basically, that was basically trying to get all the kings to worship the Pope. All the kings in Europe, almost, or at least that area, to worship the Pope, right? And so King James said, no, because I have energy gifted from God. I have the right to rule because I'm King of England and I am a Protestant king. So because of that in history, I agree. I am not very fond of a pope in power, and I find flaws with our current pope, so that's just the way it is. I don't wish anyone harm or anything. I don't wish to like be upset about Catholics. It's just not, it's, you know, if you have grown up with, and I have grown up, and I do have Catholic, you know, I have had Catholics. I went to a Catholic school growing up when I was in 3rd grade or something. And yeah, it's just like, I want to write about everything else and how that's so much more important. And one of the main things is like the Vatican Library, which is archiving some of the greatest world secrets. So a lot of my, you know, like National Treasure, we're gonna get to all these books and stuff, movies, National Treasure, yeah, like they go into the White House, they storm all these places to get the Declaration of Independence, right? They never stormed the Vatican archives. So I was like, that would be so fascinating if I write kind of like National Treasure, but they go in the Vatican archives. And then another thing is like the list of index of forbidden books that happened under like the Catholic regime. So a lot of books were banned and the people weren't allowed to read them. So that's going to be in my novels too. So you see, a lot of this is really important in history and kind of shares some perspective. Islam, so we're going to talk about the Prophet, and we're going to use cryptography, so I'm not actually going to say his name in vain or anything. A lot of these are going to have cryptogram equivalents because I don't actually want to annoy anyone. If you believe what you believe, even if you're a Catholic, like, that's fine. It's your prerogative. It's you to decide what you believe in. And I have no harm to anyone. I just express myself as King James expressed himself, you know. So then we get Aztec religion, Sikhism, which I'm not sure of at all, but we're gonna include because if you have any narrative to the story of the world, I'm gonna include you. Protestantism, again, very heavy chapter in these books, are gonna be about the Reformation, and the 95 thesis of Martin Luther. Again, Enochian is interesting because that's also like a magical religion where it has its own language, and I think it's gonna be fascinating. Mormonism, I grew up with some Mormons, and I love Mormons like so much. Like, even if it's such a different religion to something that I'm used to, I have so much like appreciation for the conservative values that they have, because I am, funny enough, I grew up very liberal and very, very progressive, and I find myself, when I was those things, when I was liberal and progressive, I was very anti-conservative. Not anti, but you know, like, I would never vote, and I still never voted for these. I don't really go for that, either or, yeah, you know. But what I was gonna say is, like, I'm starting to appreciate so much more what right-wing and conservative values can offer, because there's something to be said about tradition, and I think Mormons, by the guidelines that they live by, like, I don't know, there's something about Joseph Smith Jr. that's very fascinating to me. I'm gonna include him. And Jehovah's Witness, I used to live by Jehovah's Witness, and I don't know, it was like, sometimes I would look at and this was like downtown Chicago, and I lived in a high-rise, and it was like a penthouse. It was such a nice house, but for our neighbors, we had like a Jehovah's Witness. They didn't have any windows in their establishment, and it was always like, I heard that Jehovah's Witness people aren't allowed to talk to other people unless they're recruiting you, and I thought that was really interesting. I'm like, that's something to study about. There's always something to, like, what drives these people. Like, you have like, a lot of people know about you, it's Jehovah's Witness, so they've got to be in the story, right? 𝓬𝓪𝓵, a religion that is not good, right? Because it has a lot of influence from Satanism, and it was created by Aleister Crowley, shall we say anymore? But a lot of what they think is like occult or whatnot is based on 𝓬𝓪𝓵𝓬, so you might as well like include it in the book because you need to know about it. Scientology, yeah, everyone needs to know a little bit about it. Yeah, that is interesting because he was a science fiction writer, the creator of this, 𝓬𝓮𝓵 and you just gotta look into it. Church of Satan. Now this is like one of the newest religions, 1966, right? So it's only been going a few decades. Like, to me, a lot of this is really confusing because I hear it's like they don't actually worship Satan. So it's like I'm not really entirely sure what it is, but we're going to include it. And so because there's so much, the research is ongoing. But this is book one and this is the characters, right? Eventually what I'm going to do is this is all, basically this is like a soul bank. These are all the souls in the soul bank in my world, and they're gonna all reincarnate. So the story is about all these gods having a mortal experience, and so they're all gonna have names in the Atlantean period. They're all gonna have names in the early thousands, the 1500s, the 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, 2000s. We're gonna go into the future, 2500, 900, 3000, 4000, 5000, all the way to the alleged collision of the Milky Way galaxy with the Andromeda galaxy and what that is alleged. So yeah, a lot of time travel too. So now that I've kind of gone through this, you kind of understand what my like approach is, right? So let me take you through some books. So Dracula was my favorite book growing up, right? It is actually the first book that I ever read. And this is what really inspired me to like write because I thought it was so risque. I was, in 3rd grade reading about Dracula, reading from Stoker's Dracula from, what year was the written? 1897. 1897, one of the first science fiction novels to ever exist. And you can actually, it's, what do you call it, royalty free basically, because it's so old. They've actually allowed it to be on the internet so you can read it for free, and that's what I also love about it. And so this book is written like journal entries, which I find fascinating. So like it starts with chapter 1, Jonathan Harker's journal, 3 of May, left Munich at 8:35 p.m. So this is so cool. It's an interactive mystery, and that was one of the first books that I ever read. That's so funny. So the next ones I read was Chronicle of Narnia. I don't actually remember how many. I think I read the whole series, but it's been so long. So a lot of this, what I've heard, has Christian influence. So that's what kind of inspires me, is like you can write this wild mystical, beautiful fantasy book and also have these references to religion, which is interesting, right? So even as a kid, they recommend these books. So that I want my books maybe not as mainstream as Narnia, obviously, because Narnia is way more family friendly than my content, but still I wanted to have that kind of event where you talking about religion. The next things I would have read is Lemony Snicket's series of unfortunate events. So this is also a kid's novel, and I'm sure you've seen the Jim Carrey movies. What this did really well is that it was a kid's book, so a lot of the big word, it taught you how to read big words. So it would include like the definition of a word, and that broke the mold, or it was out of the box, because it's like breaks the fourth wall. It's like you're reading a fiction novel and suddenly you're getting an English lesson. So that's a lot of like, when I'm gonna be writing, I'm gonna include like Gematria. Like when I'm writing about bythos, you're gonna have a little like chart that says this connects this. So it's kind of like an interactive learning experience, and that's what I really love out of this book. So American American, oh my goodness, what was it called? See, I'm going off the top of my head. It's American, I will think of that book, but Catcher in the Rye was another one. Obviously, everyone's read Catcher in the Rye. But what I like about this one, the grunginess, like the existentialism, the youthfulness, the depression, and the nihilism. This is very atheist book, and that I love that. Like, I love that. Again, he's managed to incorporate a religion, atheism, into an awesome story. So that was J.D. Salinger. Another one that everyone's read is The Giver, but that was really inspiring to me because obviously, I mean, what is there not to say? But I don't know if I can show a clip from the movie, but basically everything's black and white, right? In their world, everything's black and white. So it's kind of like this dystopia where something's wrong and you don't know how they're gonna fix it, kind of thing. And I love that. I like edge of your seat kind of material. And then we're gonna do Harry Potter. So Harry Potter, I read the entire series, and this is when I started to write fan fiction. So my friends, we had a traveling notebook and that we would give to each other, and we would write little short quips, screenplays of us in the Harry Potter world, and that's where it all got started for me. So massive, again, kids book franchise, but a lot of magic and just dark elements. Like, you see like a dictator who's like the dictator is Voldemort, and Voldemort has a cryptography in his name because he's also, I forget what he's called right now, but the Lord something. The name Voldemort, if you shuffle it around, you get what? Let me Google this because that's amazing cryptography. If you shuffle Lord Voldemort, what does it say? I am Lord something. You guys know Tom Riddle? There was something in this where they like scramble the letters and then they reveal his name. Man, it's been a long time since I've seen it or read it. But yeah, that's cool. So as far as movies, like we talked about National Treasure, that's a massive like inspiration. Like, it's so cool how they talk about the Masons. Gosh, they talk about the Masons, guys. Like, wow, how George Washington was a Freemason. Like, what? They steal the independence, the Declaration of Independence. It's just so funny and so raw. So, massive inspiration. Twilight is really inspiring because, again, since I mentioned Dracula, Twilight obviously inspired by Dracula. What I think they get wrong, though, is a few things. Like, the love kind of element is a bit too forced. Like, some of the things are not as natural as I would like them to be, so we're gonna switch it up, Twilight. Let's see, another movie that I would have been inspired by. Lost in Translation. I love that in this movie, you feel like it's so raw because you're just on the street with them. It's handheld half the time, camera half the time, almost silent movie half the time. You're just hearing sound effects of them doing something about their day. I love that kind of cinema style. And what else that is really inspiring to me? Goodness, everything like everything is so like I can find something out of anything. But right now I'm also looking into Back to the Future. So I'm watching. I didn't like the first one, let me tell you that. I thought there was some elements that I was not okay with. But Back to the Future 2 was really cool. I love how they just like go from one timeline to the other. They don't really necessarily reincarnate. Okay, the next one would be 𝓬𝓪𝓪𝓪, which I've already done kind of like a little mini video about. But 𝓬𝓪𝓪 written, yeah, by the Wachowskis, the team who did The Matrix, and obviously The Matrix, everyone's inspired by them. So 𝓬𝓪𝓪𝓪 would just be another one, and so from this, they obviously they reincarnate like in this movie. Like there's different characters, and the actors that play that character end up playing, the same actor plays a reincarnated person. So I'm gonna do it differently. When I'm actually gonna have different actors reincarnating. So that's what I thought was strange about this, to be fair, because you're seeing the same actor, and like sometimes the wigs and the makeup aren't as convincing as they should be. So I'm just gonna get different actors. You're still gonna understand that they're the reincarnated soul, because this movie is to teach about soul and how do you define a soul? How do you remember which a soul is after they've reincarnated throughout many avatars? There's still something you can describe a soul when it doesn't have a human body, when it's in between incarnations. So that's where we're going. Phantom of the Opera, of course, amazing inspiration. Like, I love the sets, the sun, the singing, the masquerades, the fire, set in the old times. Like, opera is so cool. What else? Oh my goodness, I feel like I'm running out of time because I only have like a few minutes left, so I'm zipping through them. But another one from the Wachowskis, which is actually a TV show, is Sense8. I love this stuff because this is also about reincarnation. And so in this one, I don't know if this is the fight scene, but so all the main characters are connected. They're like, a sensei is like a soul tribe. So all these people are kind of like connected in the tribe. And so when they're fighting, and the Wachowskis, the directors of The Matrix, they love fighting scenes. They're really inspired by like kung fu movies. So, and the Wachowskis still kept that in Sense8. And in this fight scene, they kind of tag team. So in any scenario where the characters need help, they use each other's like expertise to tag team in and out of like memories. So cool. Like, I love that. Futurama is obviously like amazing. I've talked about some things that inspire me, and sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, it's so taboo. Like, would kids ever like talk about this subject? But yeah, Futurama is a kids show, and they've talked about almost everything under the sun. So it kind of is a sigh of relief that like even humor like this can be family friendly, and it's just so funny. Like, the characters are hilarious. So I really want like a comedic element out of this. What was one of the Beatles? The one there's like a movie. Goodness. Movie about the Beatles. The Beatles are going to be a huge part in this. Across the Universe. So another really inspiring movie. Amazing, so good. Like, it uses the Beatles soundtrack to create like a story about the 1960s. It's psychedelic. Like, yeah, we're going there. We're gonna have some musical elements. I couldn't say any more good things about this movie. Let's think of some more before I have to go. So, and the fun thing is, like, hey guys, by the way, if you're in the chat, thank you. Thanks for hanging out with me on my birthday. This is fun for me. And I hope it's fun for you, and you can tell me what inspires you and what, like, see, we're like picking and choosing little things like, I want this from this, I want this from this, like reference here, Easter egg there, and this is how you do it, right? Okay, so another thing I'm inspired by. Pirates of the Caribbean. If I didn't mention this, I would know what's by itself. Wow, like the fact that they use ancient gods. Calypso is a huge character. Davy Jones is another mythical character. Like, I love that, like, they're incorporating these ancient gods and this mysticism and this magic that, and the real world, like the real life of pirates, kind of, and immortality and the curse of like Aztec gold, and wow, like the fountain of youth, like hello, like wow. So cool. Like, even if it's a Disney movie, like one of the best written movies I think they're from movies. They were not books first. So they were inspired by a book, but they were just like, they were written. So for them to be movies and be that good, it's like, what? That's shocking. Let me think. What other? I mean, all the obvious ones like Trainspotting, like that was one of the first kind of like raw, like wow movies that I've ever seen. Which is 1996. Very dark stuff, like what? But one of the most classic, like well edited movies. Ewan McGregor, I mean, what was he in? Oh, there was that musical, the one about, he's Moulin Rouge, of course. Moulin Rouge, amazing. Like, such a good movie about, like, I forget what year this is set in. Is it the 1920s or 30s? Oh wow, that's the old one. There's a newer one. But yeah, that movie is really good. From the Moulin Rouge, we have to go for, let's see. Oh, of course, Jason Bourne. So cool how, like, he forgets his identity. You're edge of your seat the entire time trying to figure out who he is, where he comes from, like how he has these supernatural abilities, how he's like involved with the government. You get to learn a lot about, I love learning about the government. Like, law and order is so fascinating, and that's why I like the Ministry of Magic and Harry Potter too. I love that. So, and of course I'm gonna write so much about the government that of course, like, let's see what else we can think of. Maybe have like 15 minutes to hang out left, so if you guys have any questions, let me know. Let me try to think of something else. I'm also trying to see my chat because I accidentally clicked out of it. Okay, so, oh, let me think. See, this is like training myself to remember things. There was this reincarnation movie with, oh gosh, what is Infinite? I think it's called Infinite. Is it called Infinite? Yes, this is it. Oh my gosh, love this movie. Infinite, one of the coolest movies to ever movie. Like, what? 2021, about reincarnation. I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but like, there's some things I could improve on. Let's face it, probably the only thing I can improve on is the fact that mine is gonna be about Gematria and have cryptography and national treasury stuff. So this one's more like action, adventure. Mine's more like cryptography, clues, like, you know, but still, super cool movie. It teaches like a lot of the same like philosophical theories. We're gonna skip that because a little bit too much heavy on the action is all, but yeah, very cool. Let's see what else about reincarnation I can think of. There's not that many, that's the thing. 11. What else am I inspired by? Love by Gaspar Noé. This is like so cool to me to feature like these like very French like people. I love French movies. It's like such a like if you love Paris, like you gotta. Oh, okay. Speaking of Paris, like Midnight in Paris. Midnight in Paris, one of the coolest movies about it's about time travel. Sorry, it's not reincarnation, it's time travel. So he travels back into the 20s or 40s or something, and is in Paris. I love movies outside of the United States. It's so cool. Alright, well that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you guys had some fun.